Hi, this is voice of the St. Joseph Sports Network, Matt Martucci, and you're listening to Sports and Rants on Radio 1851.
Good afternoon. This is Sports and Rants with Brett and Pants. I'm here with Brett Suter along with my co-host Glenn Pantalone, and today we are on live with former Washington Nationals pitcher Jason Bergmann. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time.
No problem. Sure. Thanks for having me.
So, opening day is creeping upon us. Do you get the itch to go out there and play some ball?
You know, I get a little bit. I've been trying to, watch Sports Center, see everybody's predictions, keep up with some teams, former players, guys I've played with, how they're doing, who's going to make the cuts. Just watching as a fan a little bit more or less now.
Do you have any favorites for the upcoming season to win the World Series, or just a favorite team in general? Yeah,
I mean, since I gave most of my career to the Nationals, it's hand in hand why I'd be rooting for them. I spent so much time with them, parts of 10 years, and now that they're being super successful, they have great players in place, the management. This is a program that has been built after a few years of losing into a proven winner year after year. I find myself gravitating to them. Great people in that organization, great players, good personalities, a team you really, really, really want to root for.
Yeah, with all their moves this offseason, your prediction is they're going to be in the World Series this year?
I have to think at this point they're the favorite. With the starting rotation and pitching defense wins games, as long as they put up a few runs, getting quality innings. I mean, they really have 5 potential number one starters on this team, which is something that is insane to think about in this day and age. Scherzer and Strasburg and Jordan Zimmerman could pitch at the top of the rotation any team in baseball. Gio Gonzalez is great. Fister's going to put up a bunch of innings, great ground balls, get outs, generate innings. That's what it's all about. It's getting these starting pitchers into the 7th and 8th inning and minimize the necessity for using the bullpen. And once you get to the back of that bullpen, you got Jansen and Storin and Thornton and guys that are proven with other teams that they can pitch deep in the game in pressure situations and get outs. It's going to be a pretty formidable team.
As a former pitcher yourself, when you see guys such as Strasburg and Scherzer take the mound, what do they bring to the mound that makes them different and makes this team so good with, like you said, 4 aces basically?
They have that confidence. They have that edge that makes them strike fear into the opponents. Strasburg with all the hype early on. Scherzer has just been so dominant. And Jordan Zimmerman, I feel like, is one of the most underrated pitchers in the game. He's got a no-hitter under his belt. He's put up numbers year after year after year and doesn't get that consideration at the top of the top pitchers in baseball, but the guy's fantastic. And then I think people do forget about Fister. I think people forget about Gio because the other guys overshadowed him a little bit now, but they're top-notch pitchers as well.
So with spring training starting to wrap up, what was your goals going into spring training every season, and would you set yourself goals to reach that major league potential and reach the major leagues?
Yes, absolutely. I think everybody goes into spring training with the expectation of making the team. And I think when you start thinking about, I guess I'll be okay at AA, I think you're just defeating yourself. You have to go into spring training knowing that you're great, knowing that you've prepared, put in the hours, and then execute. When it's your turn to go out there and show everybody what you got, to actually do it. Hit your spots, throw the right pitches, work with your battery mate, work with your catcher, and just do your job. Get people out, limit the amount of base runners, and that's the name of the game.
Could you just take us into what your first spring training was like? Were you in all of the players being all around you and walking into that dugout for the first time?
Absolutely. I actually didn't go to a major league spring training before I got called up. I got called up mid-season. I'd started that year in AA. I was in minor league camp. Then I got to AAA, and eventually, I got called up in August of 2005. The next year was my first spring training in 2006, and it was kind of like, wow, this is really cool. There's just all these major league players with so much experience around us, and we think we had 60 or 70 guys in camp. So many people to talk to, so many experiences. I think that's some of the lost beauty of this spring training is that guys could sit in the outfield and talk to people that they've played against or heard about or grew up watching, and they can hear stories and pick each other's brains about what works for them and how they can get better. And it's really an amazing just a congregation of people.
Now, what would be the daily routine of a pitcher as yourself? What would you be doing every spring training? Would you be doing pitcher's fielding practice and then working on some pitches, or what would be the daily routine?
Yeah, absolutely. And, a pitcher can only throw so many pitches and so many consecutive days. So when you're in spring training, you're just getting ready. You're building up arm strength, building up that, maybe every other day you start throwing, and eventually back-to-back for a pitcher. It's a lot of running. It's a lot of standing around in the outfield letting the hitters hit, shagging. There's a lot of, just strengthening the arm, the long tossing, working on drills. We probably have fielding practice 2 or 3 times over the course of the day, different drills, whether it's covering first base or pickoff plays or fielding bunts. These little things that you can work on in spring training will be routine in the season. They'll just happen. Something will click in your head. Guy drops on a bunt, you run over, pick it up, throw it to the right base. Everything works. The fluidity of the game is all starting in spring training.
Would there be a certain point during the spring training, halfway through, 3/4 of the way through, where you thought you were major league ready and ready to start the season?
Yeah, I think, in many years ago, I think guys came to spring training to get ready. They came to spring training, they sat home with their families, and now all of a sudden they start to run, they start to throw. This day and age, guys are getting to camp earlier and earlier. They're throwing more in the off season. There's more winter leagues, Dominican, Venezuelan, places like that where guys can go and keep throwing. You can get to camp in January, and there'll be staff there ready to help you out. You get ready on your own. There's more facilities available to you. A lot of agents have facilities that they can work their guys out. So come first day of camp, whether it's February 18th or 17th or 16th, 20th, whatever, you're pretty much ready to go for camp. Like, you want to be in mid-season form in camp, because that's your opportunity to show the staff that you've not only got what it takes to pitch in the major leagues, but you've been honing your craft all off season, and you've been preparing, and your work ethic is in place that for the course of the year you can maintain.
Your experience of spring training started, or getting into the majors started with being called up. Do you think that's more of the traditional way of being called up, or do you think the more of a traditional way would be through spring training?
I think more and more guys get called up during the course of the year. You have to remember, in spring training, they're bringing in 40, 50 guys to compete for probably 3 or 4 spots. Most teams have their 1 through 4s locked down. Maybe they're looking for a 5. Maybe they're looking for 1 guy to the bullpen, maybe 2, utility guy, 4th outfielder, stuff like that. So most of the set zone positions are, the whole starting lineup's most likely there. You know who's going to be your starting catcher. You know who's going to be your starting first baseman. You know what your lineup's going to look like for the most part. So of the 25-man roster, and then you bring in 60 guys, so you're talking about 35 extra guys battling for 4 or 5 spots. The mentality for the guys coming in has got to be like, we got to get this job or else. But like I said, you want to have that confidence to be a part of that team beforehand. But the chances are that you're not going to make the team out of spring training, if you're a young guy especially. So your chances of making it throughout the year, whether it's an injury or a trade or something happens, you have a better chance of making it throughout the year.
Now, Jason, could you just go briefly into your journey to the major leagues, how you got there, what got you interested in playing baseball?
I can't even remember the earliest time I picked up a ball, but my whole family was Yankee fans growing up. I grew up in New Jersey. We watched some great teams. Don Mattingly became my favorite player, and I was privileged enough to watch these championship teams of the 90s, with the Jeters and Riveras and that core. And how could you not want to play baseball in the New York area during the 80s and 90s with those great players, especially when the championships were coming in? You rooted for baseball. It was a great feeling. I played other sports, but baseball was just the natural calling to me. I loved throwing. I loved going outside every single day and playing catch. And then I was naturally good at it. I can naturally throw hard, and honing my craft over the years, everything just kind of happened. I don't think I ever expected to be a major leaguer. I always wanted to, but there was a point in time where I think it was in Double-A, and I was looking myself in the mirror saying, how many guys actually get this opportunity to be in Double-A, and you're only a phone call away from being in the majors? And I think it really clicked at that point that I had a chance.
So you attended Rutgers University. Was there a coach there that told you that you had major league potential, that you could reach that upper level and be that great pitcher?
I think everybody was on my side in the way that they said, look, you could be really good. Keep working at it. Keep doing good. We had an All-American pitcher, Bob Brownlee, there. He was just amazing. It was kind of, it was one of those things where you watched a guy and you just knew he was amazing. And Bob was. And he got drafted in the first round. And working alongside him, watching him perform, without having to show me, I watched him. But him dominating the game like he did, it really spoke to me and how he approached it and what he did and his preparation, and it kind of helped me out along the way as well. So I don't know if anyone said, hey, you're going to be the next greatest pitcher, and that's not what I wanted to hear, but I think that being there, being around all the other guys, learning from them, and starting to realize some talent that I had really helped along the way. Something
we hear a lot, especially from scouts, when players get drafted or get looked at for major league potential, is raw talent and if they can develop their pitchers. Was there something that set you apart? Did you have a particular pitch, or was it that you threw hard?
I think it was mostly that I threw hard and I had a good curveball at the time. Curveball was always one of my better pitches, but the fact that I was younger, I was only drafted at 20 as a junior, so I was a little bit younger than some other guys. I was told I could go anywhere from the 9th round to the 36th round was my projection, and I was like, okay, that's a pretty wide range of projection. I was tall, skinny, I had room to grow, and I was really young, and I threw hard. So all those things together, I guess they put together a high ceiling on me. I ended up drafted in the 11th round by the Expos, and I worked hard at it. I got better. I grew into my body a little bit more, which really helped. But going to college definitely helped me out, and it made me really think about if I had gone out of high school, I probably would have been lost in the shuffle.
Now, do you think that's important? Like you said, going to college helped you. Do you think players should attend college to better their skills and hone their skills, or do you, in your opinion, if they're good enough to go to the majors, should they take that opportunity?
Well, I guess it's kind of like the double-edged sword. You go out of high school and you're all of a sudden 17, 18 years old, learning on the fly how to be a man. You have this 17, 18-year-old body, and some guys are 6'1", 165, no meat on the bones, no experience outside the house, and maybe they get a lot of money, and maybe they don't. Want to make sure an education's in place, and that's great. But getting that 3 extra years of growing up, a couple of years of living on your own, talking to people, getting more experience with older guys, and I think that really, really helps out. So I think if people don't get that opportunity to go early in the draft, to make the money, and if you're going to get $300,000, you can pay off college. That should be a no-brainer. Go and experience it. But having those life, lessons in college really is so beneficial. I would encourage everybody to do that.
As you said, you were drafted in the 11th round by the Expos. How was the draft process like for you? Were you expected to be drafted by the Expos?
No, I actually had no expectation of being drafted by the Expos, and I was hoping. I think everybody hopes to go as high as possible because it's a guessing game. I had some contact with some other teams, and it's just the way it worked out. I told a story that I was actually planning on getting picked the very next pick to the Royals. In the old days when it was just on MLB radio and you just listened for your name in rapid fire succession, I heard my name and I was like, wait a minute, which team took me? I think it was the Expos, but I had never spoken to any member of the Expos front office staff, scouting, nothing. I had no contact with them, so I was kind of shocked. But it all worked out pretty well, so I'm pretty happy.
How were the pre-draft interviews to test your character? You mentioned how you didn't really recall talking to an Expos scout, or how were
No, I don't think I really did a pre-draft interview. It's not like the combine where you have a bunch of teams coming up to you and talking to you. I wasn't projected to be a first rounder, second rounder, so it's not like the amount of money would have offset my character. I think if you're in the first round, people want to do the due diligence. There's no issues, no background problems, something that's going to become an issue later on. Teams give first-round picks a lot of money, and they expect them to be responsible with that and act accordingly. It doesn't happen all the time. I think that's what teams are wary about. But in my situation, I was just glad to be drafted and happy to go to whatever team picked me.
Now, like you said, you were drafted by the Expos, and during that time, the Expos were really in a transition period of possibly moving out of Montreal, going to Washington. Were you ever worried about that, and did that thought ever creep into your mind about maybe this organization isn't that stable?
Actually, when I got drafted, even before that, they were actually talking about contraction. They were talking about taking the team away entirely, and that was one of my big questions to the scout was like, okay, so what happens if Major League Baseball just dissolves the Expos? And they assured me that would never happen. That was not one of the things that they were talking about, that although the situation was in flux, things were on the rise and things were going to happen in a positive way. And plus, I think the thing that spoke to me more than anything, and it probably helped me out most in my career, was that they said, look, this is the best opportunity for you. You're a young guy. We have a lot of talent in our organization, but we're not signing big name free agents. We're promoting from within, and that's essentially what we did for many years was try to build what we could. And I know we traded a bunch of prospects in a Bartolo Colon trade, and I know we made some other deals and traded some guys away, but it opened a door for me. So if I had been on the Yankees, who knows what my situation would have been if I had gotten buried on a depth chart somewhere. But I think that's what makes me most thankful about being drafted by the Expos when it happened. Things worked out for me. I'm pretty happy.
Something we hear a lot about is once you reach that minor league level, you have the long bus rides, the bad meals. What kept you focused on reaching that goal to make it to the majors?
I feel like when it was your turn to go out there and you performed, it was the ultimate rise. A lot of adrenaline. I think when you have the same 24, 25 guys on a team and you're all doing that same trek, you're all on the same bus, you all wake up at the same time, you have roommates, you're all in the same food, you're all in the same position. So whether you came from an upper-class family in California or came from the Dominican, your first time in America was that day, we were all in the same situation for that period of time. So we all grew together. We all had the same goal. You're in this minor league system to make it to the majors. And whether you're playing for that major league team or hoping to get seen by someone else and get traded for, everyone wanted to make the majors. That was the goal. That was why we lived that life.
Now, could you just take us into reaching the majors, taking the mound for the first time? Were you in awe? Who was the first batter you faced against?
Let's see. I think I faced Abraham Nunez. I came in after Mike Stanton, who I grew up watching as a Yankee and talking to him. And I mean, he was towards the end of his career with us at the Nationals at that point. He left the bases loaded for me, and I ran out there jelly-legged. My legs were shaking. Emotions were all over the place. I was so thrilled and scared to be out there at the same time. My first two pitches were way outside the zone. I was like, oh, man, I'm going to walk in a run on my first major league appearance. But I threw a fastball in the inside corner. It was a Texas leaguer, the outfield, 2 runs scored. I had some inherited runners there, but ended up getting the next guy out on a bunt. He bunted it back to me, and like I said, I was jelly-legged. So I ran after the bunt. I could feel my legs giving. I threw a ground ball over to first base. Nick Johnson scooped it up. I got out of it, and I was pretty happy. I ended up striking out the side in my next inning. And after that, I think my confidence level just shot up. And when you make your first major league strikeout and you get people out, you actually feel like you belong a little bit more. So that definitely helped me out. I had some success early. But the situation was definitely intense. I got called up on the day of Katrina from New Orleans. So many things were happening around me. But it was the biggest high of my career at that point.
Something we hear a lot about is when you're a rookie, you get hazed a little bit. You have to carry the pink school bag, things like that. Was there any good stories from your rookie season that you had to do, especially with the veteran players, as you said, like Mike Stanton, Nick Johnson on the team?
Yeah, we definitely did all that stuff, and I think it's a great way to build camaraderie and finding your place on a team. There's no harm in it. It's a little, but you grow up and you get over it. So they had fun with us putting the pink bag out there, but you take a little pride in it. You put all the right stuff in there. You make sure you ask the veterans what they want, and I think you just find your place. So if you know where you are on that team, that you're a young buck, you're a rookie. These guys have been established. They've been through all this before, and once you find that understanding, you realize that look, it's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to the next guy. So just do what you're supposed to do, and everything will be fine.
Now, could you take us into playing for the Nationals at a time where they weren't very good per se, and that there wasn't a large fan base for them?
Yeah, I think all those things were a little frustrating. I mean, you're a major league team. I think when we were playing in Washington and we were getting 17,000, 16,000, when we would play Philadelphia at home, we'd have just as many Philly fans and just as many Mets fans when the Mets came down. So it kind of felt like we were playing a road game at home sometimes. But we didn't have the fan base because we didn't have the great team. We were in a huge transition. We were trying to build from within, and in many ways we didn't perform the way I think many of us were supposed to. So it didn't work out real well, but it put us in position, the Nationals, to do what they're doing now. So I take some small, 100th% of the credit that they have now. But yeah, I mean, when you go to other stadiums like Mets or Phillies, and you go to St. Louis and it's packed, there's so much more energy. It was so much more fun to play in front of a crowd that was screaming and yelling. The adrenaline definitely rises up. And I think teams play better when there's more fans out there, for sure.
One thing that you had to play with the Nationals was you pitched at RFK Stadium, which, as everybody knows, is a football stadium. What was that like? Was it different than pitching on a regular baseball mound? And have you seen the new Nationals Park? Have you been there recently? Yeah, I pitched in the new Nationals Park for 4 years. It's an unbelievable stadium. We opened it in, 2008? So I pitched 2008, 2009, and 10, so 3 years. RFK was really kind of cool, and I know you say it was a football stadium. They really transitioned it really well into a baseball stadium. It was a cool stadium for nostalgia. I'll say that. It was a big, spacious place to play. The mound was incredible there. The grounds crew did a great job, but it wasn't a new park. It didn't have the allure of the new parks. And when they put Nationals Park in, and I hope that everybody's as proud of it as I am, it was a tremendous accomplishment for our city, for our team to get that new park, and it really started the turning around process for that team. As you said, you were there for several years. As you grew as both a person and a pitcher, did you see the fan base grow around you as well? Absolutely.
I think early in the years, people were just happy to have the team, but when we were bad, I think it was kind of they're just going to leave or not be good forever. But over the years, especially when we get that new stadium, I think people said, all right, this team's legit. They're staying around. They may not be good now, but they're going to be. And we started to see mainstays. We started to see the same season ticket holders, the same people you wave and say hi to. And then, over the years, more and more people started to come. And there were some series where we'd sold out, and the energy was amazing. I think every time we played Baltimore, it was a great crowd. We had a lot of fun with that. And like I said before, the more people out there cheering on the team really energizes the team itself.
Something I noticed as a fan was that the Nationals seemed to always be one of the nicest teams, always talking to fans, either home or away, signing autographs. Was that something management instilled in their players?
I think something early on, we weren't a great team, so we had to really reach out to the fans and make them feel like we were all part of a family. And I think having a family owner, the Lerners were tremendous. I mean, Mr. Lerner, Mark Lerner, came out and shagged fly balls with us. He was extremely approachable. They really made it feel like, we were part of their family, and the Nationals were one big family. So we try to impart the same on our fans. We gave back a lot. We do a lot of events there. I'm sure they're doing even more now. But signing stuff for the fans, they're the people that were coming out, and we wanted to reward them for coming out, even though we couldn't provide the best product on the field for them at the time.
Well, Jason, as we're wrapping up the interview here, what are you doing now since you left baseball?
I'm a real person in a real job. My wife's got a real job. Kids are growing up, and I'm just finding my place all over again. Once you make it to the major leagues, and that's your dream, and it's over, you got to find something else to look forward to. So right now it's my kids and my family, and just having a normal life, having friends, and going out every night and having a great time.
All right, Jason, final question for you. What advice would you give a kid if they want to make it to the majors and reach that dream?
Just know that there's a lot of work. It is a job. It's not going to come. It's not going to get handed to you. The most talented people in the world, they have to work hard for it. And in my experience, the guys that stay, the guys that have the most success, are the guys that put in the most work, not just on their bodies, making sure they're taking the right, vitamins or making sure the body's up to 100%, but getting in that film room, doing what they have to do to be successful, scouting, talking to the right people, putting the right people in your corner for sure, and then just know at the end of the day, you might have some free time on your hands, but someone else is out there trying to get your job. So as long as you're sitting still and sitting pretty on your hands and not doing anything, someone else is hungry. Someone else out there is going to take your job if you're not careful. So work as hard as you can for as long as you can, because I look back on it, I played parts of 6 years in major leagues, and there's not one thing that I would like more than to go back and do that.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and we learned a lot from you.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I do appreciate it. Anytime, guys.
Thank you.
This concludes our podcast of Sports and Rants with Brent and Pants. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Twitter at Sports and Rants. Like us on Facebook. Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. And visit our website, www.sportsandrants.blogspot.com. It would help our rankings on iTunes if you rate and review our podcast. Thanks, and have a good day.